Hey folks, John back. It is February and we got a long way to go to turkey season, but you know there's a few things people have asked me about, different recipes, what to do with their wild turkey after they've caught it, and definitely got some time right now. As great as the weather has been outside, I'm going to put together two recipes here. We're going to do wild white turkey chili, and then we're going to do wild turkey poppers. So I got my turkey breast right here. This is a whole turkey. There's two halves in here, and it's going to get it nice and cleaned and rinsed up. And this is from that bird I hunted and spent forever getting to, and then watched those other two toms last year at the end of the road strut out and not take them. But this is the one half of this got nailed pretty darn good. He's got some holes in him because I was aiming pretty darn tight to his chest. And if you watch that video, you'll know I cleaned his brush pretty good. One thing I always say when you're going through your turkey breast afterwards, make sure you get every single feather off of it, every little piece. You get a little BB hole here and there, you'll notice that the feather gets pushed into that hole. So you want to dig down in there and make sure that those feathers are out of there. Because honestly, when you're cooking, whether it's in the crock pot or otherwise, if you leave even a little bit of feather in there, it adds kind of a foul taste, no pun intended. Alright, so we got that one. And this is the cleaner one, so I'm going to do the poppers with this half for sure. Rinse it with nice cold water. Dry it off really good. Now this is the one that got beat up pretty hard. So I'll definitely be using this half for the chili. It doesn't matter if I dry this off or not. It just matters that you clean it up really good. And like I said, if you got some BB holes, chase them down. Make sure there's no BB left inside there, no feather that's been pushed through by the BB and left in the middle of it somewhere. It just doesn't help on the flavor at all. I've already pre-cleaned this one pretty good, so there's not much to do. There's a little bit of feather right there. And there's a little more. Yeah, pushed right through the BB. Examine it good. Chase those holes down. Make sure there's nothing in there. Another little bit of feather in that one. Other than that, it looks pretty clean. Not too bad. So you just put that whole half a breast right in that crock pot. And then you can cover it up with water so it's about 1 inch above it. Add some salt, some pepper, and then go ahead and put it on low and let it go overnight till that breast is fully cooked through. And then I'll show you what we do with it tomorrow. We'll get to that eventually. There'll be a lot of cutting and pasting on this video. Alright, so that one's in the crock pot. You can also add some spices to it while it's cooking. And I got a few here that I like to use. Mrs. Dash is a really good one. Real simple. Just a simple Mrs. Dash chicken. And it says grilling blend. It's a favorite of ours. We do it with a lot of different things. So we're going to add a little bit of that in that crock pot. Another really good one to add in, and we'll be adding these flavors in a few different places throughout this recipe. If I can get this one open. There we go. And this is Weber's beer can chicken. This is a really good one too. This has some really great smells to it and some really fantastic flavors. I definitely endorse Weber's beer can chicken. Throw a little of that in there as well. And I have a little bit of teriyaki, but we're not going to use that on here. That's going to be used on this other half of the breast that we're going to use for the poppers. Alright, so that's simple. Now if you wanted to add a can of chicken broth to that as well, you could. It's not really necessary. It's going to simmer up and create its own broth. So I'm just going to add some good cold water to it. And like I said, bring the water up to about 1 inch above it so you don't have to worry about it simmering down too far. That's about perfect. like I said, about an inch above the other half of the breast. So with one whole turkey, both left and right side breast, you're going to get a fantastic meal between the white wild turkey chili and the poppers. That is enough to feed a good crew of people. Alright, put that on low, and it's going to go overnight until it's fully cooked. Alright, a good sharp knife definitely helps. Nice clean turkey breast. What we want to do with this is we want to get some pieces, and I'll show you why afterwards. What I want is some nice hearty pieces, roughly about 4 inches in length, not too thin. And you can cut them out of the breast everywhere you go. There's a little hole right there, but it looks pretty good. Alright, so I'm just going to take this off. And out of this piece here, and there's no perfect way of doing this. You just want some nice, good, thick pieces. And then we're going to throw them right in this pan right here, and I'll show you that afterwards. So that's what we're looking for. Some nice, good, thick pieces. Just like that. Good 4 inches, give or take. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a slice of red pepper, you're going to see. And then I'm going to add some cream cheese in it. And we're going to wrap the whole thing with bacon as well. But first we're going to season these pieces overnight also. And you're going to keep working your way through this whole breast, doing the same thing. And you're going to notice that you have a lot of this white skin on one side. This really white, sinewy outer layer. You work it from the opposite side, you can push down against that and just clean the meat right off of it. If you leave too much of it on, it ends up being pretty tough. If your knife is good and sharp, you can clean it just like that. Just slowly working the meat down off of it. The reason being is that stuff can be pretty darn tough if you leave it on the meat. Clean as much off as you can. Alright. Now, like I said, I'm looking for those 4-inch pieces. I want to get as much out of this breast as I can. I'm going to take this right down here like that. Now I can go all the way across it and make a pile of them that way. And if those are too big for you, do it a different way. It doesn't really matter how you take it off, how you take the meat off of it, just so that you get the pieces that you're looking for. Like I said, I want some nice thick ones like that. And I don't mind them being a little big. Just don't want them to go too thin. If they get too thin, they're going to cook so fast. It's just not good. And if you think they're too big, you can always shorten them, cut them in half. If you want to take them on a different angle, so get that white stuff off. Alright, here's another. We'll go right across this way. Make them not quite as big, maybe get more out of it. What I like to try to get out of each one, let's make that one kind of thick instead. Go across this way. There we go. If you really wanted to see how you can cut down and push that off, I would say we'll just go down like this and then turn the knife and then just start pushing the meat off of that sinew that's on the outside. It will clean right off. Just like that. And you're left with that sinew down on the bottom there, see? Work that stuff right off if you want. Coming right off. Got to have a nice, clean, sharp knife. And you'll just keep rolling that right off. Get yourself a good fillet knife. Make sure it's nice and sharp. It doesn't even have to be an expensive one. I think my wife got these at Walmart. But what made them good was when I put them on a good sharpener and took my time. There you go. All that's right off. So it doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. Nice tray full of nice big chunks. What we are going to add to it to let it sit overnight is we're definitely going to throw a little bit of teriyaki seasoning on here, marinade. You don't want to overdo this though, because if you do, it'll just consume it. But you don't want to not get enough on it either, because that becomes pointless as well. My recipes are a guide only. After that, I just kind of got to feel my way through it. So we got some teriyaki in there. Going back to the beer can chicken seasoning as well by Weber. Great stuff. God, it smells so good I just want to eat it. Alright, so we're going to throw a little bit of that on there. This is because you got to add some seasoning to it. It can be pretty bland if you don't. And there's going to be more we're going to do as well. Last but not least, some more on Mrs. Dash. This stuff is fantastic when it sits overnight and just soaks in. Get yourself a good container like that. Alright, it's nice and seasoned up. And all I'm going to do now is throw a little bit of cracked pepper on there too, because I don't. So we get some good fresh cracked pepper on there too. Alright, and that's it. I'm going to put the lid on. Give it a good shake. Up and down. Make sure it gets coated really good inside. Alright. That's it. And now, in the fridge it goes. So that's our very beginning preparation for these two meals. Hope you're going to enjoy this. We'll be back tomorrow to finish it up. More to come. Alright, good morning everybody. It is the next day after. I got the first part for you last night, and so now this morning I want to take you through the rest of the recipe. I'm looking at the turkey breast this morning and it's all done and ready to go. So rather than just putting up a piece of paper with the recipe on it, I want to show you the layout of how this works. Now this recipe obviously is designed for a certain amount, and I'll take you through that too, but like I said, when it comes to recipes for me, whatever it says in a book is a guideline, and after that I kind of create my own. So I'll kind of take you through as best I can, and you can adapt it to whatever works for you. Alright, let's take a look at the ingredients. Basics. 3 cups of turkey. 1 or 2 cans of Great Northern beans, and so it's always going to be white beans. That's why it's white chili. Really important you get those Great Northern white beans. Okay. Now, for the amount of turkey breast I have, I'm going to guess probably 3 cans, because it's definitely going to be more than 3 cups of turkey when it's all cut up. So I'm going to go with 3 cans. I'm going to bump the recipe up. But the recipe for 3 cups of turkey is going to be 2 cans. So I'm giving you a basic recipe for a certain amount of bird, and that would be 3 cups of cut up, packed in the cups turkey. Now you will have to increase your recipe based on that. Alright, then 1 onion, and you want to get a good Walla Walla sweet onion if you can. If it's out of season, you're going to have to probably get one of those Mexican sweet onions, because that's about all that's floating around right now. 1 green pepper, you're going to dice that up. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take that pepper and that onion, we're going to dice it all up, and we're going to fry it up in some really good butter and a little bit of salt and pepper. Get it pre-cooked before you throw it in the crock pot. Alright, 2 cans of green chilies diced up. You got the green chilies back there, ready to go. 1.5 tablespoons of cumin. Cumin is what we're going to use for the spice overall, and that's where it's going to get that chili flavor without the red chili powder and all the extra seasonings, because then it's no longer white turkey chili. 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, and we're going to add a little bit of salt for flavor. Now if you're going to use salt for cooking, in my opinion, you want to use kosher salt. It's way different than a standard salt. It's stronger, it has a nicer flavor to it, and it's just so much better. It's great on steaks with a little kosher salt and pepper as well. Now for pepper, I always like to use white pepper because we're making white chili. White pepper is just a little bit milder and has a good flavor. We're going to use 1 cup of whole milk. Got some whole milk over here as well. And again, you're going to increase all these things based on your own taste and based on the amount of turkey you're putting in. Again, this is for 3 cups of turkey, and you're going to adjust after that. Then we're going to have 2 tablespoons of masa corn flour, or you can also just use basic cornmeal, which I think is perfectly fine. I think the corn flour sometimes will overly thicken this chili, but that's up to you again. for today and for this recipe, I'm just going to use regular cornmeal as if you were making cornbread. Alright, cilantro for garnish on top, but you know what? I like to chop up some cilantro and cook it right into it as well. Don't be afraid to use the stems, chop them right down. We also have some chicken bouillon because the truth is you need to add a little extra flavor to get it to pop out, because wild turkey does have a flavor but it's not as strong, so you need some bouillon to add into there as well. That's kind of important. Alright, so there's the basic of the recipe. Corn also, a can of corn is really important. It just brings out the chili. I use corn in all my chili. I think you can't go wrong with it. So there's the ingredients. Alright, 1 whole can of corn today we're going to put in. I'm probably going to use 3 cans of the whole white northern beans. And I just looked there and I noticed I have 2 cans of corn. One of those cans is not supposed to be corn. Alright. So we're going to pull that out of there. We're going to add another can of the great white northern beans. Now it makes sense if you're looking at it. Alright, so let's get busy and get our onion all diced up and get our pepper done. I'm going to pull the chicken out of the turkey out of the pot first. So get 1 big piece of turkey breast. And I think that right there is probably more than 3 cups chopped up already. There's one other small piece in here as well. Alright. That's a good amount. And notice I'm not using a giant crock pot either. Now, as far as this turkey breast is concerned, there's 2 ways to do this. And preferred way, if you have the time, is after you cook it overnight in the morning, take it out, wrap it up in some aluminum foil, put it back in the fridge and let it get cool. Let it cool down really nice, and then it's easier to chop up. If we chop it up warm like it is right now, or even hot right out of the pot, it is going to shred, which is perfectly fine as well. You're not going to have big chunks in there though, and you want to cut across the grain. Try to pay attention to that, because if you cut with the grain, you're going to have long slivery pieces when it cooks down. If you cut across, you're just going to have lots of pulverized small pieces, and it makes a really nice chili. But if you cool it first in the fridge, let it get nice and cold, and maybe make it for dinner instead. I'm trying to get this done for lunch because I got people coming over. And we're going to be making those poppers together as well later on, putting them all together. And so when we get done, we're going to have this turkey chili, and we're going to have the little poppers on the side. Alright, so here we go. First things first, getting the pan nice and hot. Got a couple of nice big pieces of butter in there because we want to get these onion and the green pepper sauteed ahead of time. And you might notice I have one of these new copper pans. Not overly impressed with them. They work good. Nice thing about them is they clean fantastic. But you have to be really careful that you don't overheat them too fast. Alright, I'm sure everybody knows how to cut up an onion. What you might not know, unless you're really into cooking, is that if you don't want to cry while you're cutting up your onion, you take a cup of water and hold it in your mouth. Unfortunately, there's no way I'll be able to talk if I do that, but if you hold that water in the back of your mouth while you're cutting up the onion, it basically filters out all the fumes, and you can cut onion without any issues and not crying and getting all teary-eyed. But sweet onions are not quite as strong as a yellow onion, and really you don't want to use a yellow onion in my opinion. How big you make your slices is how big your chunks will be. It doesn't really matter. Let's get a nice sharp knife, get your onion all cut up like this, and then dice it up, throw it in the pan. While butter's melting, try not to cut a finger off here while I'm on camera, although that could be entertaining. Boy, I don't know about you guys, but I can't wait for spring to get here. I think it's going to be a fantastic year. A great turkey season is coming. If this temperature keeps up like it is, this reminds me of some past turkey hunting seasons that we've had where it stayed warm. Alright, that butter's getting all mixed around nice. I'm going to turn the heat back down before it gets too hot. I just want to get that butter melted. Alright, now here's something else that I like to do that is not in the recipe. We're going to add a little bit of regular chili seasoning. Not too much, but enough to season the butter, but not turn your white chili red. And that seasoning adds some nice flavor to your onions and your green pepper. You better cooking in the morning, besides wild turkey, is a good cup of coffee. And I do love my coffee. Alright, pepper, pretty simple. Cut real tight around the top. And we have chickens, so I save everything that is salvageable for them. And man, they go crazy over the pepper seeds. So I like to pull that out. Knock all the seeds out. Now if you want your chili to be hotter, obviously you can use some cayenne pepper in there as well. But I usually put that on the side because not everybody eating it is going to be happy with super hot chili. So I try to make the chili very tame. Take your pepper and just cut it up into long pieces. And don't worry if there's a few seeds in there, it just adds to the show. The onion is in there sizzling, but I don't want it to cook too much because I want it to cook with the pepper. Now, your pepper, you want to dice it up. It's up to you how small it is, but I keep mine probably some little, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch squares. Alright, so we got this in here. Get your wooden spoon. Yeah, these copper pans, they work good. The one thing I do notice with them, the butter just adds to the flavor too. Just a little bit of red chili. It's fantastic. Now, if you got some pico de gallo seasoning, you can season this up with that as well, rather than just dumping it into the food. And that's a good way to add heat. If you can find, and keep that in mind, I didn't show it to you earlier as a spice option. It's not necessary, but if you find some pico de gallo seasoning, this is a good time to add that in if you want to add a little bit of heat, a little more flavor. Now we're going to let that simmer up, go back over, let this cook down. Don't drain it as it cooks. Just bring it out afterwards and dump it right in the pot. Alright, back to the turkey. It's cooled off quite a bit now. And all I'm going to do is start pushing this apart and slicing through it. Like I said, go across the grain. Find the grain in it, try to go across it. If you go along with it, later on it is just going to disintegrate to such a degree that it'll be pulverized. Now you're going to have some sinew in here and stuff. You want to cut around that and try to remove all the chunky stuff that no one's going to want to eat. And just get it cut up. Get it cut up and cleaned up. Get the garbage here. Yeah, you want to get that rubbery stuff out that's usually in the middle of the breast. You don't want that in there. How big or how small you cut it, it's not going to matter too much. Just get some pieces off of it so you can see what you're doing. I've given this recipe to a few people. I know, Cole, if you're watching this, you and Kim made some really good chili I heard last year. Kim did a great job whacking that bird last year. Hope to see you guys back out again. I'm not sure if I finished my discussion about why I think this season is going to be so good this year. And mainly is just simply because with it being this warm, the birds are getting a ton of food. They're not having to scrounge as much to get through winter. And if the snow stays off the lower hills as much as it has, that also means the birds are going to move up into the hills faster before the hunters are out. And I like that, not because it makes them harder to find, but just because you don't have people crowding them out as much, and people are going to have to work to find them. Now pay attention as you're going through this breast. You're going to find maybe a little more feathers here and there hiding inside. You can see I'm basically just chopping it apart, trying to maintain that cross grain cutting all the time whenever I see it. Alright, so there it is all cut up. Now if I were to use a cup, I guarantee there's probably 1, 2, 3, probably 4 good cups in this pile right here. So I'm just a little bit beyond the recipe that I stated, but it should be perfectly fine. Getting this all in. Without losing any. And the crock pot ready to go. That's a good amount. That's quite a bit. I probably could use a bigger crock pot, but I think we'll be fine. I'm going to go check my other stuff. Let's go see how the onions and peppers are doing over here. Oh, nice. It smells so good, it's scary. I got them on a low setting. There we go. I like to get them a little bit blackened up, just like that. Seasoned up with the butter. You can see that the peppers are turning pale and the onions are nice and translucent, not overcooked. When you get that little bit of burntness on your peppers, the same way I like them in my eggs, well, I could take this and throw some eggs in here right now. This is about perfect. Maybe a little overcooked, but it's done. I'm going to take that and throw it right in the crock pot as well, the whole thing. Alright, getting our peppers and onions thrown in here. Oh, this looks so good. Okay, next, all we're going to do now basically is I'm going to take these beans, green chilies, the cumin, the paprika, can of corn, and then I'm going to take this chicken bouillon and I'm going to put probably, for the amount that's in here, probably 3 chicken bouillons in there to start out. You can always add more, but you can't take it away. Add the white pepper like I told you. You can add a little bit of kosher salt, not too much, because again, you can't take it away, but you can always add more. And then the white pepper. And we went through how much of that we're going to use. Basically, 1.5 tablespoons of cumin or more. You have to keep checking it as it cooks. 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. I'm going to use just a dash of salt and pepper to taste. There's no way I can tell you how much to use. I'm going to start out with 1 cup of whole milk in this recipe. And we already put all the other stuff in there. We cooked over on the side, and then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of the corn meal. You're probably going to want more, but start out with 2 tablespoons. You can always add more later on. That's just going to be a thickener, and that corn flavor comes out as well. Then the cilantro. You're going to chop up some of these cilantro leaves. I like to dice up probably about, I don't know, 2-3 tablespoons full and throw it right in there, let it cook with it. It adds a nice flavor in my opinion. Yeah, you can add more to the top later on. And then that's it. Chili, that's about how much cilantro I just chopped up right here. And I chop up the stems with it too. And cilantro's got a nice strong flavor, but you know, you want that in your Mexican food. So that's going to go right in this crock pot as well. The other thing I didn't tell you that I should mention is that when you're opening up these beans, you want to drain them out, okay? So here's where we're at this point. It's looking really good. We're going to add all that cilantro right in here as well. And I still have 1 more can of beans I want to add to that. There's the corn in there, the turkey's in there, the pepper's in there. I got all my spices going through. And now you put it on high. And it probably is only going to take about 3 hours, which is perfect because we're going to head out and we're going to come back at lunchtime, and then we're going to start making all those poppers. I'll get that on video too, and then I'll show you the whole meal later on. And like I said, you want to take those cans when you open them up, you want to drain 90% of the juice out. Same with the corn. Drain 90% of the juice out of the corn can, 90% of the juice out of those Great Northern white beans as well. Don't go rinsing them. They already have a little bit of salt mixed into them. Don't buy the ones that say no salt. And if you find the corn that's been fire roasted, that's great too. It adds another flavor to it. But I just have regular corn. It's going to be perfectly fine. There it is. All right, Northwest Spur Chasers, we're back. It's been about 3 hours. I just cooled this off. But the chili looks fantastic. You can see now it is steamed out quite a bit too. This is about as thick as I like it to be. I can be honest, I think I overcooked it just a little bit. I can tell just by the way it looks, but it tastes fantastic. The only reason I know is because the green peppers, they kind of dissolve in your mouth when you eat them. So went a little too far on that. But the taste is fantastic. There's no loss there whatsoever. Probably 2 hours on high would have been perfect. 3 hours was just a little too much, and we had to leave to do other things, so that's done. Either way, it's sitting on the side and it's good to go. Now for the next half of everything.